Thank you very much for coming, so many of you. I'm going to tell a bit about myself and about journalism, which is what I've done all my life. And I start with the day I came out of high school in Switzerland, in a small and foggy town. The foggy town, you can have a look here. It looks nice, but my house was actually under the cloud. So, when I came out of the high school, I sent a letter to 20 newspapers. These were all the newspapers that were around my area, Geneva Lake area. And I was telling them I would travel to Eastern Europe, Middle East, Africa, and I was offering them to send them articles from these places. I was 19 years old, and I was trying my luck. And it was 1989, so I'm afraid it looks for you like a very long time ago. Most of you were not even born, but it was a time, it was the year the Berlin Wall fell down. It was a time when the Swiss people were still very hard readers of newspapers. So you had these 20 newspapers just around me. And I remember preparing the envelopes and putting stamps on them and sending the proposal to these papers. And 2 of them said yes, and that was just the beginning of my career as a journalist. 35 years later, more than half of these 20 papers have either closed, merged, disappeared. So, and that's why 5 years ago, I had a good position at Le Monde in Paris. I was the deputy director. And I renounced this position, and I came back to Switzerland in order to create a new media, because I thought media is needed in my home area. So this media is Heidi.news, which I give you just the homepage now. And why Heidi? Heidi, not because of the small girl with the nice hair. It's because HD means for us high definition, and Swiss people are very they work with precision on the watches and clocks, and I thought they could also work with precision on information, interviews, investigation, fact-checking. So we wanted to do precision journalism. And the good thing when you create a media is that you can choose your topics and your people. So I hired a bunch of young journalists specialized in science, nature, health, environment. And 6 months after the creation, there was this pandemic, COVID-19, and my team happened to be like the best possible team to cover this amazing event and this moment. So we produced the news, we produced the reportage, analysis, fact-checking. We even infiltrated a group of conspiracy theorists. That's the leader of the group of the conspiracy theorists. They believe that the COVID was a creation of the World Economic Forum, the Davos Forum, that has its headquarters in Geneva, and that one day in Geneva, the people there in this forum decided, yes, let's create the COVID-19 so we can, after that, control the world population with this virus. So we gained many readers with this pandemic and the team I had, and soon we were bought by another newspaper. It's called Le Temps, and Le Temps had just been itself saved by a foundation that has bought the Le Temps, and they bought us as well. That became more complicated. When you have a startup and then suddenly you find yourself in a larger organization, you lose some agility. And Le Temps had big challenges, needed to reinvent itself. It takes a lot of time and money, so it was not that easy for us. But still, we celebrated this year, the 5th anniversary, and for that we decided to launch an investigation called Let's Look for Happy Journalists, because for some reason some people think that journalists are not happy people. So this is the booklet that is there. It's a magazine that we have published a few months ago. And, the media is said to be dying. Everybody counts the nails on the coffin, the social networks, the fake news, the platforms that are eating advertising away from the newspapers, like Google, Facebook, the news fatigue. I think maybe you know that, you have enough of this constant flux of news coming to you. The censorship sometimes, and the evaporation of people not willing to pay anymore to get information, and so on. So we selected 12 media around the world, and these are, I don't know if it's big enough, but this is the map of the world, and we selected 12 media, and what we found was really astonishing. The first one is Axios. I don't know if you know Axios. I just took a piece from them that was published today. And Axios in Greek means important. And this media organize all its content and the way they write about what matters. And this is voilà. So, you know, journalism sometimes is like long stories with many paragraphs, and maybe people get tired of reading these stories. So Axios does that. They do a first paragraph with the news. NVIDIA on Wednesday afternoon projected, projected strong demand for its product. Then second paragraph, why it matters. So then you know why you read the story. And then the big picture, they give some more context. And then they proceed by bullet points instead of long paragraphs. And I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting way to present information, because you business students, you are used to bullet points in presentation and things. So why, when you read the paper, should you read like long pieces that you don't really know where is the important information? So that's one way to do it. The second way is quite the opposite. It's Tortoise. It's a media in Britain, tortoise, like the animal, and they only produce long reads. They call it slow journalism. Maybe you have heard about slow food, like a way, the opposite of fast food. Slow food is like, you know what you eat, you know who has produced it, and so on. So they call it slow journalism, and they produce, I think, only 5 stories a day, and they go deep into the stories. What I want to say is that journalism, maybe you're not aware of it because you see large networks like CNN, Fox News, etc. But it remains in many cases craftsmanship. It's like something you do with your hands. And technology is needed, of course. And technology will change many things. We'll come back to that. But also, sometimes it's low-tech, and low-tech works as well. This is an example of a media in Africa that is only available on WhatsApp, but not like a short message, but like a PDF with a normal magazine, but on WhatsApp. And it's a guy in 2020 who created it alone, and then had some friends joining. And now it's the most widely distributed newspaper in Africa. It's made in South Africa, in Joburg, and so this is the website. They don't have information on website. They don't have articles. They just have the possibility to put your number, and then you receive the PDF every week on WhatsApp. You know, the first mission of journalists is to look for the truth, if the truth exists. But that can be dangerous. So there is a media in Philippines, Rappler, that was created by the Nobel Prize Maria Resla, and she did everything on investigation. I mean, Philippines has obviously some issues with corruption, and she did only investigation, and she had a great success with that. The thing she did is that she used the wisdom of the people, the knowledge available in her readers, and that is quite new in journalism. You know, you had the journalist before being like the guy who knows everything and who tells you what to think about that and that. In nowadays, it's more like a dialogue. It's more, the journalist is not anymore like the arrogant person who tells you what you have to think, but it's somebody that you can speak with, And Maria Ressa, she used information that were available among the Filipinos, and she pursued the investigation and had some scoops. There is a media in Germany that we also covered in this investigation called Correctiv. They did exactly the same. They started with the wisdom of the crowdsourcing, the crowdsourcing. And this media in Germany, Correctiv, built their success on the information they got from the public. But then the real success was last year when they did a very classical thing for journalists. They infiltrated a secret meeting of the far-right movement, AFD, and they got the information out of it, and it has brought thousands of people in the street. This is Correctiv, and this is a demonstration that was provoked by the article they published. Of course, journalism is linked to what's going on Earth, and I think you are so many here and from so many places, you are well aware of that. After Russia started to invade Ukraine, many journalists, Russian journalists, had to flee Russia because they limited the press freedom, and some of them created media outside Russia. One of them is called Medusa. It's in Latvia, and it's quite a good outlet, actually. Even people close to the Kremlin, close to Putin, read it because they need to know what the other side says. And in Ukraine itself, journalism in Ukraine has played a very important role. After independence in 1991, the country was plagued with oligarchs. You had many people who managed to privatize assets for themselves. And investigative journalists brought many corruption cases to the light. Some of the journalists were killed because of their work. Now that the country is invaded by a neighbor, somehow there is a sense of national unity, and there are some limitations to the press freedom. But some media still go ahead with corruption stories, and I use the case of Ukrainska Pravda, which means the Ukrainian truth, and they continue to publish stories about corruption, even in the Ministry of Defense, in the army, because when you have so much money coming from abroad, of course, some people will try to get a share. The role of the media is also sometimes to give a voice to the voiceless, and that is a very interesting project in Brazil. There is a newspaper called Voz da Comunidades. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. It was founded 20 years ago by a young boy. He was just 11 years old. And he started a small newspaper in his favela in Rio, one of the most dangerous favela, and slowly became widely read. Now they have a team of 30 people working every day with him. Some people say the media is just here to give you fast and accurate information. Some other media have higher ambitions, and that is the case of a media in, let's say, Israel and Palestine, because this is called 972, and it's 972 is like the phone code for Israel and Palestine. You can have both, and this media has more than just news. They have a program, they have an agenda, and they have a line. They want the peace in the Middle East, which is probably something very difficult to achieve. But they employ both Palestinian and Israeli journalists, and they also get a lot of information from their audience. They published a few scoops recently, and they have shaken the destiny of this. But they have not yet achieved peace. In our days, the media that suffer the most in terms of business model are the ones who want to cover everything. You know, from the soccer match, the Barca matches, to the opera, from the war in Ukraine to the local politics. The media that want to do everything need a gigantic newsroom with, Le Monde had 500 journalists. The New York Times has maybe 2,000. The Financial Times has a bit more than 1,000, so it's huge. And it's probably why many media, new media that you create, you cannot hire 1,000 people when you create a media, so they choose certain topics and they stick to it, and they try to create value on these topics and not about everything. And there is one example that I like, it's Vert. Vert, it's a guy in France who happened to be a former intern with me at Le Monde. And he had nothing to lose, he had lost his job somewhere else. And then he just prepared a newsletter that he sent to 50 friends as a test. And it worked, and then he started working with his girlfriend, and then slowly, now they are 12 people, and they write only about nature, environment, climate, these issues. And among the 12 employees, they have one who is a very good dancer. So they have this Instagram account with 200,000 followers, which is quite good. This is Lou, the guy I told you about. And then this dancer they have among the staff, he's a journalist, so he's also writing serious things. But every week he dances for the 5 good news of the week. So he selects, I hope you have sound. No. Sound is not connected. So you have a great music, imagine. And the guy dances, and then you have the 5 good news of this week, and the first one is like, Puerto Rico is creating a new protected area for marine animals. In France, there are new actors to protect the environment. The deforestation of Amazonia, has been reduced a lot. Los Angeles is pursuing Pepsi and Coca-Cola for damages to the nature, etc. So sorry for the music, but have a look at the account, and it's quite fun. But at least this media has found a way to address the people they want to speak to, and it's probably people of your age. Another media that is probably well-fitted for you is Grand Continent. Grand Continent, it was created in France by students in a kind of Ivy League university in Paris. And it's very brainy, but it's about Europe, it's about geopolitics, and they have a Spanish version. And it works very well. So it's not fun, they don't dance, but it works very well, and they also publish one book per year to summarize what they do. I went fast on these 12 papers. I skipped a few of them, but I want to say as a conclusion that healthy and diversified media is essential for democracy. And the world we live in is more and more complex, and therefore you will need more and more journalism to explain it. So it's a job for the future. Take the question of environment, biodiversity, renewable energies. All these things are the object of a scientific consensus. I mean, the scientists agree that what's going on, but many people still believe that it's political. And just take this gap between the consensus from scientists and the opinion of many people, then you understand that there is a lot of work for journalists to fill the gap. And that's a bit what we try to do in Heidi.news. I can't go too deep into the examples, but for example, in Switzerland, half of the farmers will be retired in a few years. And so who will take over? Who will go to the farms and work? Their sons and daughters, most of them wanted to live in cities and to study like you do. And so who will feed the country? So for that, about that question, we ran about 12 episodes. Like we worked 6 months on that, And we went to see all the possible aspects of this question. Even the question of how, if you are willing to become a farmer and you don't have parents who are farmers, how can you get access to the land? And it's very difficult. There are many rules that probably have to be changed. Another example is an investigation about Ozempic. You know this drug? It's a drug that was developed for diabetes and for overweight people, but many people, of course, use it just to lose a few kilos. And so we use the work of a Turkish journalist that's an artistic work, but it's not related to each topic. And the journalist spent 6 months interviewing every single scientist who has developed the drugs, the molecule GLP-1 that was the base for Ozempic. And the two companies that produce it, it's a Danish one, Novo Nordisk, and an American one, Eli Lilly. They are worth now 500 billion and 600 billion, respectively. So it's really in the pharmaceutical world like an amazing achievement for these two companies. And of course, they don't produce enough. I think they cover only 4% of the market in America. So you can imagine the potential for these drugs. So we spent 6 months investigating this Ozempic issue, and this is what we do. A third and last example is it's about energy. You know, in Switzerland, electricity is provided by large companies that like lead the market and decide the price and everything. And there is a guy who said, why, you can produce your own energy as a citizen. You can have solar panels on the roof, and that's a possibility. But then he said, why not to do it at the city level, even the small villages? And so you will have more panels, wind turbine and everything. And so he tried to change the model and to challenge the large companies with city-based energy companies. So we went to Denmark, we went to Germany, we went to France to see what works in this field, and of course in Switzerland. And it's a slow revolution, but as a journalist, you always have to be aware of like the weak signals, something that beeps but not very loud, and then suddenly this small sound could become the future. So this is part of the job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, and I hope you want to join me now on stage for a short conversation. Thank you so much, Serge. I have to say, for those of you who are studying here, have you been here also last year? If you can raise your hand, was anyone here last year? See, a couple of people, Serge, and I want to tell you something about that, because you said there's happy journalists out there, and I can confirm that because the last journalist who was here with us at EU Business School in this very space today is the editor-in-chief of the Washington Post.
Wow.
So you see, there's a bright future ahead for journalists who come here to EU Business School at FC Barcelona, and we thank you for doing that. I just have a few very short questions, and then I'll let maybe one or two people in the audience also ask a question. Think about your questions now, because we only have about 10 or so minutes left in this conference. Serge, let me ask you first, we're here with students that they're all going to figure out what they're going to be doing in their life, in their professional life. And I'm sure that some of you are thinking to go into banking or finance or consulting or entrepreneurship or maybe the pharmaceutical world. You chose journalism. Could you tell us again why that was? Why was this for you the calling in your life?
Well, you saw the picture with the cloud over my city. So it gave me desire to travel because I wanted to escape the cloud. And but I traveled with my parents when I was a teenager, and I never understood tourism. I have to confess, because we went to Greece and we went in Athens and in front of the Acropole, and we were supposed to take pictures of the Acropole. But on the side there was there were postcards with the Acropole, and the pictures on the postcards were better than the picture you could ever do because, they would do it at sunset or something. So I never understood the concept of tourism, like going around and taking photos of monuments. So I wanted to travel, but without being a tourist. And the best way is to be a journalist, because journalism gives you the right even, to knock at every door. And most of the time, people open the doors, and you can speak with real people, not just the Acropole. And you can sit down, you can understand. It's a way to open yourself on the world and to have an exchange. I think that was the reason.
I can confirm that that's a really good reason, because I'm a journalist myself, Serge, as you know. And when I started out, one of the things I was most excited about was that as a 20-year-old, being a journalist allowed me to go and see a football game in the Spanish league and to interview the players after the game. And I felt like such a privilege to be able, as you say, to knock on those doors and open those doors. Now, of course, there is also a higher purpose that you want to achieve something for the world, for the benefit of the world. We'll talk about what Andre Hofman's purpose is later on. What is your purpose when you build media or when you do journalism?
I think it's to build intelligence on specific topics, because, to build knowledge and intelligence and do it with humility, because it used to be, I told you, the journalist used to be the guys who knows everything and tells you what to think. In nowadays, it's more a conversation. But when you publish something and you see that thousands of people read it, and they read it, you can have the metrics like more than 4, 5, 6 minutes. Then you understand that you have filled a need, and it's very comforting. I think, the purpose is to build intelligence, is to bring attention to important issues.
Society.
I'm not willing to do journalism about the famous and glamorous people. I want to do about environment, about energy,
Yes.
about these things.
So you wouldn't be writing about FC Barcelona then?
Why not?
It's a good topic. I think it's a nice topic. But I understand what you're trying to say. You also mentioned with these stories that you said about the happy journalists all over the world and how they built media companies in the modern age. You showed also how media can be a success story, how it can be a business that is successful and that can be sustainable from a financial point of view. What do you think today is one of the keys to being a successful media company that can sustain itself?
So either you are very big, like the New York Times and others, or you are very political, like Fox News, which works well as well, but they have clearly surfed on the wave that this wave has also brought Donald Trump back to the White House, and it's political. Or you are very agile and flexible, and you understand what is the important topic right now. And it's a world where everything is changing. The technology is changing. The political context changes all the time. So you have to be agile, and the newspapers who doesn't manage to feel what to do and to change quickly are in danger.
Now, if we apply that to your company, Heidi.news, you talked very briefly about the topics that you cover. Now, I find that very interesting because you cover science and health and nature and the environment. And now those topics make sense to me, but I don't know if I would have come up with them if I was creating a new media company from scratch. So how do you know, and how did you know that those were the right topics to cover?
It's a question of intuition. I think you also look...
You didn't know that the pandemic was coming.
I didn't know. I wasn't aware of the World Economic Forum meeting on that day in Geneva. Now, the thing is that you also see what is missing in other newspapers. And you see that journalism is a work under constant pressure. You get news, you have to produce, you have deadlines all the time. And I choose topics that need time to develop. For example, now we are launching a new investigation about rewilding. Rewilding, it's a technique that consists not only of protecting certain areas on the planet, but to recreate like a wild state as they used to be before. So it means introducing species, animals and plants, species that can recreate kind of a state of wilderness. And it happens everywhere, in Scotland, in South America.
The wolf
Africa.
was back in certain
The
parts
wolf,
of
the
Europe.
wolf is a good example. Of course, some people don't like it, but no, it's a global movement, and we have taken a guy who traveled around the world for the last 6 months, and he will tell us what works. And this is very important because as a journalist, you have to, there is a lot of greenwashing also in these aspects, and you have to tell the readers what I'm telling you is works. I mean, if I tell you that in Argentina they are doing that, yes, I have to go and go on the field, see by yourself, and also follow the topics. Because what I think readers are fed up with is that journalists, they do one piece on the one thing and then they forget and they do other things, and they never tell you what happened with what they have done a year ago. And this is very important to continue following what you have published.
And those topics, of course, sustainability, science, health, are topics that warrant such follow-up and going deeper and asking more questions.
Sure.
And then my final question to you, Serge, I know that you're also quite tech-savvy, maybe not as much as you all are in the room. I'm sure that you guys are very well aware of the latest technologies. But of course, as a journalist, you are also faced with artificial intelligence, AI. Could you tell us a little bit more about how AI affects media as a business and how you use it also to benefit what you do?
First, I want to say that the media globally have been very bad with technology. When you think that Google was created by two guys on an American campus and not by a newspaper, I mean, search engine, the search is the essence of journalism, and the journalists, I mean, the media were not, they were taken by surprise by internet and by all these things. So the media have, I think, in their essence, difficulties to adapt to technology. But still, now and I know Amazon will always do a better technology than even a great newspaper. So it's very difficult for media to be on the edge of technology. With artificial intelligence, I myself, I don't use it to write articles or to create pictures, because I think I respect the authors, and we practice a journalism that needs to be well written and everything. I don't say that ChatGPT cannot write well, but I want a human behind the writing. But we use it a lot for translation, for sorting a lot of massive volumes of data. When you get data, for example, like tons of the Excel files, and you want to extract what is interesting, yes, artificial intelligence is a great thing. And we also use it to summarize some articles.
It's really interesting because I think it shows, in fact, in practice, what people say is the promise of AI, namely that it is a technology that could augment human abilities rather than replace them. And so I think by pointing out that you don't use AI to write, but you use it to make certain processes that your journalists use more efficient, to translate, and so on and so forth, it's an example of how you can augment the work of your journalist. So thank you for that, Serge. Now, very exciting moment, Serge. In the last minutes that we have left, we have some time for questions from the audience. We can take two, I think. So if you want to raise your hand, now's your chance. One there and one right here. And then we'll go, and you'll get more chances later on in the chat with Andre. But let's go there first. Tell us who you are, what your question is, and then here as well.
Hi, thanks so much for joining us today.
You want to stand up?
Okay, cool. My question is just,
Your name.
Oh, my name is Luke from South Africa. My question is just, what do you make of the rise of informal media, like X and Reddit, for example, where people can just publish their own takes and their own twist to the news. Do you see it as a positive thing, because there's different perspectives, perhaps a rise in journalism, or do you see it as a negative because of fake news?
Excellent.
Thank you.
It's a very good question. Thank you. No,
Yeah, sure.
You know, Elon Musk recently said that he believes in citizen journalism and that X is, by essence, citizen journalism. I cannot say it's positive or negative. It's a competition, and I'm in favor of competition. I'm liberal, and I think, yes, why not? The thing is that, first, in the social media like X, a lot of content comes actually from newspapers or from regular media. So some people just make a comment about an article, and this is their contribution. If you remove all the content that comes from official, classical, traditional papers, then there would be less content on X. Second thing, it's an unfair competition because when I write something, I have to be able to prove it. I have to be able to answer in front of a judge. Sometimes we had a few cases, and we, thanks God, we always won our cases. But it's very hard when you are in front of a judge and he says, "Are you sure about it? Can you prove it?"
And you say, "I got it from Reddit." And it's not going to hold up in court, I suppose.
And nobody that publishes on X has to prove it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that somebody suppresses it or criticizes what he said. But so information is still a hard thing to find, to prove, to assess, to bring. And I think our job cannot be matched by just people giving their opinion on X.
Thank you. And then we have the final question here in front, if we can get the microphone here. Yeah, great, perfect. And feel free to stand up. We can see you, but maybe the rest of the crowd cannot.
My name is Eduardo, and I'm from Italy. And I wanted to ask you if being took over from another company has affected you and affected the company in terms of value, and maybe in terms of like being suppressed from giving your own point of view from, for example, in terms of nature, science, and so expressing those values that you implemented in the company.
The values of the
values.
company as opposed to the value, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think a company needs values. I mean, cynicism is not good for nobody. So yes, I assume these values, and I defend them. But I understand that some people would not agree.
And what are your values from your point of view?
I think that was the question. Sorry, I missed the beginning of what you said. A list of the values.
If the values were changed when you got took over from another company.
Yeah, sure. So when the company was bought by another media company, did the values change? A larger company, different culture?
No, the values didn't change, but the perception from the public changed a bit because we were bought by a bigger media, and then some people loved us because they said you are different, and now they say now you are like all the others, which was not true, but it was perceived like that. But I think these values were compatible between us and the other paper. The values are truth, respect, all these. It's not very different, but it's difficult to, when you create a company. Let me give you an example. In the small company we are 18 people. Everybody would bring its own computer to the office and work on it, and we would add a certain amount on the salary, so to compensate the fact that the guy is using his own computer. We tried to propose this to the bigger media, and they said that's not possible because journalists there don't want to be responsible of their material. They want someone else to do the updates, to check if the thing is okay, to replace the cable if something is wrong. So the autonomy we had was a great thing, and this got lost when we were bought by the other one.
That's a really interesting example as well, because it sort of speaks to the sense of autonomy, as you say, the sense of self-determination And often in smaller companies, startups, people have a much greater sense of that sort of self-determination, the ability to affect and take responsibility and pride in their work. Just before we go, Serge, if you had to give one advice to all the students here today as they go out into the world and build their own careers, what would that be?
Would be follow your passion. I think if you are here, it's because you have talent and you know how to work hard. So you will be able to choose the sector of your activity, and you will be maybe even able to choose the company you want to work with or the company you want to create. So nothing works in life like passion, and so do what you like the most, do what attracts you the most. And that's, I think, the best way to success.
You know, Serge, I find that amazing advice, not because we haven't heard that before. Actually, it's the advice that's most given by CEOs. But
really?
I find it amazing from your side because, unlike many others, you are really the living example that you can indeed follow your true passion. If, for example, that passion is journalism, that is a possibility, and you can make a career in journalism as well. Serge, thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you so much.